Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. And this week joining us from West London, I hear there's a difference between all sides of London, but from West London is Ali Asl. Hey Ali, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to your show.
Absolutely.
So happy to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. So Ali is an experienced and accomplished independent agile coach, trainer, and Scrum Master focused on supporting organizations and teams in the application of agile values and principles to deliver quality and value. So Ali, that was a short intro to you. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, maybe even West London, and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
I've been in the industry since 1999, but when the millennium bug was happening and everybody was panicking that everything's going to crash, that's when I started my journey in the IT world. I started off as a tester, but it was all waterfall at that time, where at least the organization I was in, it was all traditional. We would actually have, in a weird way, we were doing agile without realizing we were doing agile, but really badly, because what we used to do like 1 week, one month of design, 1 month of development, and 1 month of testing. But what that meant was we were actually doing 2 days of testing, and
that's actually a lot better than some of the organizations I worked back then, because they were doing like 3 months of development, sometimes even 6 months of development before any tester got to touch the code.
I have horror stories where I was locked in a room for 6 months writing test scripts. I mean,
my God.
Literally every one of them started like, turn on the machine, turn on. It was so brain dead, and I guess in a way this is why agile made such a huge impact in my life. As a tester, nobody ever listened to me. Nobody cared what I had to say, because I would look at the system, I would say, well, this is not how I would use it, because I was looking at it from a user's perspective, and developers were looking at it from spec that somebody just made 2 years ago. And
are no longer with the company, and
yes, and they're
so
gone, long gone, and you don't even know who you're going to demo it to, if there was any demo. Which more 9 out of 10 times they only got to see it, like, whoever was left over to do that role will see it, and they were like, "Oh, this is not what I want." Can you now go raise the change request, and the change request will stay in the system for 6 months, and yeah.
If you're lucky, they will get to it, because
yes.
I've personally removed change tickets that were 3+ years old.
Oh man, yeah. I actually have a policy with my current with all my teams. If the ticket, even in an agile environment, if a ticket has been on the board for 6 months, I'll question, in the backlog. I'll say, why is this here? Is this that urgent?
We don't plan to get to it anyway, so why don't we just drop it?
Yeah,
make it a feature.
Or it'll just become archived in another board, so it gets away from our current stuff, so it doesn't make so much noise.
Is that how you got started with Scrum Master? Like you were like having all of these challenges as a tester, and you started looking outside. How did you get started with that?
No, I was actually I got very lucky. In about 2001, my manager walked in and said, "Oh, have you guys heard about this Agile Manifesto?" And I was like,
that could have
no,
been me, by the way. For me, it happened in 2004. But yeah, I probably said those exact same words.
Yeah, well, he came in and he said those words. I'm like, no, I haven't. By the way, I didn't even go bother looking at the Agile Manifesto. He just told me, oh, it would never work here. I'm like, oh, okay.
Obviously.
Yeah. Funny enough, 7 years later, I got a call from that company asking me if I want to become a Scrum Master there. So it clearly worked for them, because they changed a few years later. But at the time, yeah, they said, "Oh, it won't work here," and so and I just left it at that. But at 2003, I left that organization. I went to work for a chip maker, they make credit card chips. It's a really fascinating technology behind it. This is when chip and pin became a thing in the UK. We were doing all the testings before it becomes a law. And that's when I got introduced to Agile. I mean, we did it terribly. Don't get me wrong. I did, when I first got introduced to Agile, I wasn't a Scrum Master. I was just a tester within Agile environment. But that thing in just becoming a tester within the Agile environment or using Scrum was amazing because people would listen to me. When we have our planning, I would say things. And when we do our, story points, when I say, no, this is larger than you think, people would actually negotiate with me. We talk. We had product owners in the room, and this is something never experienced.
This experience that you're sharing is actually it is very familiar. And of course, I mean, having we always have to keep in mind that we can't be good at anything before we give ourselves the permission to be better at it first, right? Like when I started with Agile, I'm sure it was horrible. I don't even remember most of it, maybe for a reason.
But you block it out.
Yeah, exactly. But we learn, right? And that's really what we want to focus on. And because today's Monday, Ali, we want to hear about a story of a failure moment, something that you went through as a Scrum Master that kind of shaped who you are and, made a difference for you, but it came in the form of a lesson through a mistake or an error, which, of course, we need to cherish and learn from. So tell us that story, Ali.
Sure. I've actually thought hard about this one because when you, like yourself, when you've been doing this role for so long, you've got so many horror stories, you got so many wounds. I actually had 3 or 4, but I had to pin down one that really changed my mind. My life around and the way I work. I was Scrum Master for about a year at this time. And I joined this. Well, I started off as a tester. Then I basically got. They didn't want to pay for a Scrum Master, so I offered my services. I said, "Look, I'll do it. I still have my day job, which was a tester, test lead, or / test manager. I guess they didn't have a manager role. It was more like the leads were the managers at the time. It was a very hierarchical organization, and I decided, I'm going to help them. And then we had this." IT manager who was very, well known. Well, he thought he was very good at it at Agile. So when I first started doing, we did the visualization. We had a physical board. We started doing planning and daily stand-ups. Or just to give you a heads up, obviously we called it the stand-up then, but it was obviously daily scrums. But this is how bad it was. We used to take notes at the stand-up because the manager wants to
notes,
read.
Right?
Meeting notes, yes. Yeah. So our stand-ups were about 40 minutes long. I obviously I knew this was wrong and we shouldn't be doing this, but I didn't feel strong enough to be able to speak up.
Yeah.
And this is the spoiler, the ending of what's going to happen. Hopefully, it took me about 6 to 7 months to get that confidence. And I feel like a lot of Scrum Masters, when they're new to a role, they don't have that confidence to say no. And for a long time, I saw my team suffering. I tried to help them as much as I can, obviously, but it got to a stage where I felt like, now's the time I need to step up and say no. And that was just one example.
What was that stage, though? Because that's important for us as Scrum Masters listening to this story. It's important to first realize that it's okay to feel the pressure to just accommodate whatever you're being asked, but it's also okay to slowly start evolving towards being able to say no, right? And for you, Ali, for you personally, what was that trigger? What was the turning point that allowed you to say, no, wait a minute, this is wrong?
Yeah, so we used to get we used to do monthly releases, monthly deployments. So we used to, which was okay because we still had 2 weekly sprints. So we'd have a shippable product by the end of the iteration of the sprint, but we never released it until we only did it monthly because the way the promotions worked, we had to do it monthly. So what we used to do, work very hard. By day 20, even though the product owners have seen it all, will walk up to us and say, "Oh, we need a new promotion." These things take 3 weeks to develop, sometimes, and we need to do this. And the pressure, and the people used to cancel holidays. People used to come in at weekends. People used to. I used to do 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day. And this bit kind of broke the camel's. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, and I had to go in but this took time for me because I needed to build that confidence and relationship. And a lot of the time, Scrum Masters they get upset, but they don't really do anything about it. They need to build that relationship with the business. With I've got the product owners in, I've got the product manager in even, and then we had this conversation. We said, look, this is what we can do. This is realistic to what we can do, and we're losing people. People are leaving because they're so overburdened. You're coming in last minute, even to change the color. It wasn't simple as just one of the product managers said, why don't you just copy and paste it? And I thought to myself, well, if you could copy and paste it, then why would you not copy and paste it? And why would you hire
a team
to do this? It's not just a copy and paste. And also it helped us. One of the tactics I use, I mean, there's loads of things you can do, but is to get the product managers, not just the product owners, because they were really not product owners, they were proxy product owners. So they were just, they were the voice of product managers. So we got the product managers involved. We had 5 product managers, and we got them all involved in our day-to-day work, and they got to see the pain that we go through. We got them to come into our daily scrums, and we got them to come to the plannings, not the product owner, but the product managers. So we got the business feel and see the pain we're going through and how things are working.
That's actually a great point, because very often, I mean, we started this off by saying we need to get the courage and the confidence to say no, but very often it's not, even if we would say no, it would not be enough to say no. But when you get people involved, when they can experience it themselves, then they have an understanding, a perspective that is impossible to replicate without that experience, and therefore are more open, right? Also, because they know the team now, right? Like they've spent a few weeks working directly with the team. They know them, they trust them now. They are not just a blob of resources, as sometimes we hear them call the teams, resources somewhere behind a wall that are doing some copy-paste development, right? So I think that's actually a very good point, that creating that trust and relationship is not just for Scrum Masters to do it. I mean, they need to take the lead, but it's for Scrum Masters to do it so that PMs and POs can have that trust and confidence in the team itself.
Totally, because by the end of it, we had POs and the PMs block. They were removing noise. They were actually, they were almost mini Scrum Masters. They were protecting the team as well, because that's part of the role. They should be protecting the team and helping the team. And in a way, we had a better relationship. And I learned that I don't have to always be popular. I can be unpopular and get the job done and get a great team working together. In the end of the day, all we're trying to do is not to be needed anymore. So part of the not being needed anymore is, you might realize that you do have to step up and put yourself in an uncomfortable position, at the same time as putting everybody else in an uncomfortable position for a better outcome.
Absolutely.
And like I have a thing that I always I have a notepad I'm showing right now, but it says be kind to yourself. I used to always be upset when things didn't go, but this is when I was new to the roles, and I used to be very upset. Oh no, the team isn't doing Scrum properly, and be kind to yourself, because you're doing your best. It's not like despite you doing your best, they're not.
That's a great way to finish this episode, the fail episode. Be kind to yourself. Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Ali.
Thank you.
Monday is about what we learn from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests help their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.